This is Jeremy Edwardson from The Myriad, and you're listening to the Rumors Are True podcast.
Welcome, this is Jeremy Allen Gould, and I'm coming to you today to confirm between God and of man that the rumors you have all heard are true. I started this podcast to have a platform for the bands and artists that I've worked with in the past, as well as new musicians and artists that influenced myself and many others. The Rumors Are True podcast is an opportunity for the artists to tell their story their way. I'm still in the business of confirming rumors. I still love a good conversation, and I still freaking love music. So thanks again for joining me on this journey, and I hope you like what you hear. With that said, the rumors are definitely true.
We've got a lot to learn. Why do we always run away? The time to fight is now. A silent voice is of no use. We've got to rise up. And so the story's not over. The war hasn't been won. All that's left is understanding. The enemy is alive.
Hey, thank you for tuning in to this latest episode of the Rumors Are True podcast. My name is Jeremy, and today I welcome the band Forever Changed. You know Forever Changed from the label Floodgate Records in the early 2000s, power pop, power punk, whatever you want to call it. Amazing band, so short-lived, but it was really cool to have the band on and be able to talk about their history and, of course, their future. So I hope you enjoy this latest episode with Forever Changed.
The enemy is alive. We see him all the time.
Forever Changed. Dan, Ben, Tom, Nathan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely, guys. Thank
Yeah,
you
man. Glad to be
so
here.
much. That's awesome, man. I'm really excited for this episode. It's really awesome to have all four of you. This is the first full band I've done, so I'm really excited about that. Tell me, guys, individually, what do you got going on currently in your world? What's new in your world?
Who wants to start?
Whoever wants to go.
I nominate Nathan.
All right, sure. Well, just real quick, we mentioned this, Jeremy, right before we hit record. This is the first time the four of us have, been all together, I think, since the band split. We tried to do the math. I don't know if it's been 19 years, give or take. So this is special for us to be together. So just thank you for having us. We're super thrilled to be here. For me, in my world, I still live in Tallahassee. That's where Forever Change started up. That's where I've planted my roots. I've got a wonderful wife and two kids. My daughter Piper, she's in middle school, doing fun middle school stuff. My son Abraham, he's 8. He's in 3rd grade. Loving the dad life, loving the family life. Yeah. Tallahassee's been really good to us, and we've still got a ton of great friends here, and the music seems pretty cool. Still like to, go out and catch as many shows as I can, play with some friends. I work in software development, for a large insurance company. I work in software engineering, for most of my professional life, during and especially after the band. So, that's me.
That's awesome. I love that.
This is Tom. I play bass in Forever Changed, and also want to say, Jeremy, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with the guys. And just the fact that you're interested and other people are still interested is mind blowing to me. And so just so humbled and grateful. Also want to thank our manager, Nick, who's not with us, who's really the fifth member of Forever Change. We already are trying to manage 4 people on this podcast, and you're an angel. And so, Nick, we love you. This one's for you, buddy. He was a huge driving force for us, and we love him. But I live in Orlando, have a great, wife and 2 young daughters here, and, have done a few different things, but most presently, I'm working with a friend, and we're working through a project where we are helping people tell their life stories. And so we've been building something called Lasting Remarks. That's a kind of a passion project that helps connect people to an opportunity to share their life story in their own words, and
That's
then
cool.
to be able to give that to their children and their grandchildren as sort of an heirloom about their story from their perspective. So that's kind of what I've been up to. And when I'm not doing that, I'm really pulling a lot of weight as a dad. So I'm doing a lot of pickups and coaching flag football and doing things like that.
That's awesome. I love that. I love hearing that. Whoever's next.
I can jump in. Just echoing, this is really cool. So thank you, Jeremy. This is awesome. I married to a wonderful woman, and we have 2 children. Our daughter, Kylie, who just started at Western Washington University. Go Vikings. She's a freshman there. And then our son, Reed, who's a junior in high school. And he's another kind of partner in crime with music. He's writing songs, and I'm just living vicariously through him with that, which is awesome. And then musically, the last 12 years, so I moved to Seattle, Washington in 2012, and pretty quickly was blessed to sync up with old friends, Jonathan Young, who played in Myriad, and then Kevin Warner, who played in 238, and then another gentleman, John Wood, who's he played in a band called Dry Point, and then a Seattle band called Hoshin, really good groups. But anyway, so we started Verlaine, and we're still, 4 dads playing 2 shows a year when we can. But that's been really life-giving. It's funny to think back of Forever Changed how, when we were doing it full time, it was 7 days a week practicing type of thing. And so now being in a band as a dad with a full-time day job, it's, can we practice 6 weeks from now, on a Monday night? Like, that's kind of where we're at. But we put out a couple of records and EPs and such, but it's been cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm Ben. I play guitar, and man, once again, thanks for having us. Really appreciate that. And, I've got 4 beautiful daughters. Twins. They're 10 years old. I've got my little child, Claire. She's 12, and then my oldest, Olivia, who's 14. Yeah. Still live in Orlando. I work for a firm called Martin Aquatic, and we do like large scale aquatic, destination features like that, and I just help manage those projects.
That's awesome. Very cool. That sounds like really life-fulfilling things in all your lives, which is really cool. And of course, family life is where it's at. So that's cool to hear, what's new in your worlds. Bring me through growing up for you guys individually. Let's talk about some of the bands, some of the records, shows, influences that kind of pushed you guys in the direction you went into I want to be in a band.
I can jump in because like all 4 of us met in high school. So we grew up together. Really, I know. So that was part of it. I bring it up because we were, our world was introducing music to each other.
Yeah.
And then when we found those commonalities, so we were discovering music, a lot together. And growing up, I loved Radiohead and Nirvana and bands like that. And then, a game changer for me was actually so I lived in Cincinnati my freshman year of high school and then moved to Tallahassee. That's where I met Nathan and Ben. And right before I left, Cincinnati, we had, our youth group had a building that was an old Midas, like rundown Midas building that was turned into a venue called Extreme. You know, no E. You remember that in the 90s? Like, a youth group. Extreme. Yeah. And pre-internet and all that, so we thought we were super unique. But Cool Hand Luke came through.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that was, I remember that being like, wow, they turned around the whole time, and Mark gave it, you know, just awesome speech / sermon kind of in the middle of it, but it just was so authentic and so real and so different. And so that really made an impression on me. And so it was neat to come to Florida, and then, you know, Florida music at the time, especially in kind of that indie, emo, hardcore world, was just exploding. So we saw, I mean, there's a great venue called the Thunderdome in Tallahassee.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
And see Saga 24/7, you know, pre-Amberlin. We opened up for Ludacris before they were Norma Jean, and played with Quinn Luke. Like, there was so much going on. And then the last thing I'll say before handing off the other guys, for me, it was Sunny Day Real Estate when Diary came out.
Yeah.
And then when they broke up, but then How It Feels. And then I remember vividly CD Exchange in Tallahassee, Florida, Ben and I after school going to get The Rising Tide on CD the day it came out and just driving around in Ben's Jeep. I mean, I remember this vividly, and still to this day, like that record, The Rising Tide, is just,
it's amazing.
I can't get enough of it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nathan.
Yeah, I have two different answers. On a personal level, you know, what I think really was most impactful for the music that I would, you know, learn to love and just be a part of as a musician. When I met Dan, you know, a lot of what he just shared happened right before he and I met. So when he and I became friends, he had all this new music that I had never really heard of before. I had not yet really discovered that there was anything that resembles an independent scene, anything indie I wasn't aware of. I love bands like Radiohead and Beastie Boys. Yeah, I still love those bands, but you know, the bands you at that time would have to hunt for yourselves and get into. Dan was my first friend who, you know, exposed me to that world. So I remember vividly, Dan, one of the first things that you and I really bonded over, I had a CD burner, which way back then in 2000, maybe 1999, that was 2000. I mean, those are few and far between. That tech was like cutting edge. So Dan came over to my house, and we'd spend like a weekend. He'd bring his stack of CDs, and he'd have his like, you know, list of stuff he wanted to put together for a compilation. That got me into Jimmy Eat World. That got me into the Get Up Kids.
Yeah.
That got me into, you know, all the bands around that world that just opened my eyes completely. So that's, you know, answer number one. On a personal level, that just like a rocket. Just I couldn't get enough of finding bands like that.
Yeah.
As Forever Change, and we'll get into in a second. We used to be called Loose Change. That was my first band, and I remember vividly one of the first kind of do-it-yourself concerts we went to was Saga 24/7. They played at some club on campus at Florida State University.
Go Noles.
Go Noles. That's right.
That's right.
When I say club, it wasn't a club. It was a room with like one power outlet and, you know, tile floor and maybe some speakers that somebody had brought in. And here comes this band with that, you know, they piled out of the back of a van. They set up their own stuff. They, if you know Saga 24/7, who then became Amberlin, they had a very, very awesome live show. Blew me away. I know Dan and Ben were there. This is before we met Tom. Blew us away. That was a moment for me where I knew it wasn't about any kind of like fame or glory or popularity or trying to be the biggest band you could be. I wanted to do that. I wanted to sit in a van, play for 20 people, and
sleep
just
on floors.
sweat my butt off for an hour with my friends. That's
cool.
very life-changing.
That's awesome. I love that. Ben, go ahead.
Man, echoing what Nathan said, I remember that too. But I think that what's interesting is that, like, kind of before Dan, my thoughts on Christian music and what I, like, knew of Christian music was basically, like, Stephen Curtis Chapman and stuff like that.
Dude, Great Adventure, baby.
Yeah, so I just didn't even know that there was another world out there of countercultural Christian music like that. So it was completely shocking to me that there would be cool bands that would do stuff like that. So I agree with them. I mean, Sunny Day Real Estate Rising Tide, I have to agree with Dan. That one, man, that's like a seminal record for me.
Yeah.
It just changed my life for sure. Appleseed Cast, I think a lot of their stuff, their early stuff was really, really important. And then I'll even say, like, I mean, we listened to so much stuff like Slick Shoes was the band we listened to, like, quite a bit. You probably say a lot of the Loose Change stuff was really influenced by the Slick Shoes records. And even the Simpleton stuff that Dan did, really, like, that was shocking to me that people were doing that. That they were doing, like, cool music, and what I thought was cool music, like kind of ska, or like, I don't know, Dan, you would disagree with that, it was kind of ska, punk. But something like that was not Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
That's awesome. Tom.
Yeah, I like to think that Dan completely rescued me. Like I was the kid who was listening to 311 and Sublime and garbage like that, and Dan met me and he's like, you can listen to this, I guess, but there's other music, and I had not heard it, and I remember distinctly, like I remember, and I still talk about this. This is probably 22, 23, 24 years ago. Dan showed me American football.
Oh, wow.
And it completely changed everything I'd ever thought about music. And I 100% also agree with Ben that when I heard Appleseed Cast, I like Low Level Owl 1 and 2.
So good.
It blew my mind. Like I'd never heard anything like that. And I thought, holy cow, like there's so much more out there than what I'd ever understood. And from there, I think we just sort of, it was such a rich time in music and such a rich time in kind of just in like youth and being hungry for getting to have new and experience those sort of new sounds and things, that we were just all ravenous to like get these records.
Yeah.
And I wasn't so much into Sunny Day Real Estate and Diary or Rising Tide. And as a bass player, like I talk to my girls a lot about this. Like I don't listen to anything anyone says. Like lyrics don't mean anything to me. And that's just me personally. I'm 100% about how it feels and the rhythm of it. And so there are certain bands and that even American football is such a rhythmic, groovy, that's such a stupid word, but groovy band that I feel like has so much just character and, just unique time signatures, and there was so much that just caught my attention that just absolutely kicked the door open. And I can't remember the name of Dan's band in high school. What was it, Dan? What was the name of your band? Was it Dora or
Mona. Yeah.
Dan had a white minivan, and I remember listening to Sunday's Best and different polyvinyl bands, Owen, different things that I was just like, what is this? Like this just like I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it. Like it was such a powerful time. And then that influenced so much for me, just sort of new genres of music, etc. And then I'm not sure if we'll get into influences as I joined the band later, but I'll just do it now in case we don't get to it. But Cave-In's Antenna is my favorite.
That's an incredible record. Unbelievable.
Cave-In's Antenna is my favorite rock record of all time. It still is. It's my favorite bass tone record of anything I've ever heard. Caleb Schofield, rest in power. God bless him. The best sounding bass tone I've ever heard. I ended up playing Gibson Grabbers only because of him. I still have all of my stuff. I worship Caleb. I mean, I think he is the greatest. And so, that really, if you go back and listen to Need to Feel Alive in Chapters, all I wanted to do was be Caleb Schofield. So, and still, all the crap I have in my garage, I have all my gear, I have everything. It's all about Cave-In Antenna. And so I still tell my girls, we listen to Cave-In Antenna, like that's such a huge record for me. So all those things sort of came through and sort of influenced me. And the guys all three of these guys have had such a profound effect on my musical landscape, and just how I've grown and what I've learned to love.
I love that. Cave and Antenna should have been a massive record. It should have absolutely been. Amazing record.
It's perfect to me. It's perfect. It's still perfect. I could listen to it every day. I love it.
That's sick, dude. Sweet, guys. Well, you guys mentioned Loose Change. What were some of the other bands? And kind of bring me through the beginning of Forever Changed. How you guys kind of decided, hey, we want to do this, and according maybe the influences of, I know you kind of mentioned some already, but, what was the primary goal, influence, or, like the way your sound evolved?
Yeah, Ben mentioned Slick Shoes. Dan and I both, I think, mentioned Saga. We definitely started out, when I say we, myself, Nathan, Ben and Dan were a trio for the beginning of what would become Forever Changed. When we started, we were 16, juniors and sophomore in high school. And we were more on the punk edge of the, indie rock spectrum. And, a lot of fast, we would try and play whatever was fast or as complex as our, or at least for me, my limited abilities, because I had just started playing drums. True story. Dan taught me, most of what I know about drums. So
wow.
I was very novice, but playing just fast and loud, I think, was the name of the game. At least from my view, being the drummer in that. The first thing we put out, as Loose Change was an EP called Dear Jesus. And, if you go back and listen to it, and I'm really excited to hear what the other guys have to say about this time, but to me, it was kind of like a band that was trying to be punk without being punk, but also we have very much some 80s hair metal, amazing guitar licks, virtuoso style guitar playing from Ben, who is no offense to anybody else. Ben is the most talented member of the band, at least with
no question.
We're playing.
Hands down.
Ben Halen.
No question.
Ben Halen.
Ben Halen. Dan is the most handsome. Dan is the most handsome. And if you could see him right now, you would be like, oh my God, he's the most handsome man I've ever seen. But Ben was, 100% the GOAT.
Yeah, I think what happened, Jeremy, because we were so young when we all met and started playing. I was fortunate enough to have been in a band called Simpleton up in Cincinnati before I moved to Florida. So and the guys were older than me and taught me a lot. And so I knew what it was like to kind of be in a band, and then playing with Ben and Nathan, who, were musicians and had gear, and Ben's dad's a musician. They knew what they were doing, but we were all growing together. And what happened was both of them just got so good. Just really, really proficient. So you can even start to hear in Dear Jesus, when I was 15, they were 16. The guy was producing it, Keith, who was a total 80s rocker, and we all kind of had this affinity, especially. And then Ben got VHS tapes of Michael, what's his name?
Michelangelo.
And so there was always this affinity, yes, for the indie emo and stuff. But then Ben was just learning. So I'm not kidding. Both of them got so good. So we would practice all the time. And then it seemed like even just after a couple weeks or months, Nathan and Ben would show up, and they're just getting really, really proficient at their drums. So you can even, or at their instruments, the drums and guitar. I think for me, it was mainly how can it quickly turned to how can I keep up with these guys? And I really mean that, because I don't think I hadn't sang before. And I think I kind of vaguely remember Ben and I talking we knew, like, when Nathan's a drummer, like, he's got to be back there rocking the drums, and Nathan and I kind of talking, who's going to sing? I kind of remember that, and I think because I was just maybe
the best looking.
The more talkative. Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah, baby.
But, yeah, so that we were just kind of off to the races with that. Like, we were all just kind of learning our instruments, and I felt like pretty early on, it was like, boy, I've got to keep up because they were just getting so good, you know.
Did you have a good voice at that point, or did you know that you had a good voice, or?
I just think I had this confidence that shouldn't have been based in anything. Like it was, I don't know.
No, you're being humble, Dan, but I don't recall it, being that much of a struggle. Now, if you listen to Dear Jesus and then maybe the last thing Forever Change put out, and especially, something like Verlaine, you are a very good singer now. And I think you were fine back then. Being that young, we weren't hard on ourselves yet. We were naive. We were excited. We were just happy to be in a band together. And, it's not till you look back where you're like, oh, okay, well, I wouldn't play it that way now.
Yeah.
I would sing that lyric now, that kind of thing.
I am sure that I thought I was a much better singer than I was at 15 and 16, and I am positive I thought we were like the best band in town. I'm not kidding. Like, we would do festivals and such, and I just remember thinking, like, yeah, we're like the best. I doubt I said that, but I definitely remember being very proud and confident of what we were doing, and maybe that carried over in the voice. The way I thought about my singing voice, but it played into kind of the punk thing. Like we would listen to, Nathan mentioned Jimmy Eat World, like Static Prevails, the first album.
Great record.
Like that was the type of stuff. And so I don't think it was thinking through more than just, let's just do it and play fast. Like Nathan said, fast and loud. And I'm sure that's about as much as I was thinking with the singing too,
What, when you guys did the Dear Jesus EP, did you feel like you had some good songs, or were they just kind of trying to figure it out?
There's a song on there that we re-recorded for the next thing we put out, which was our first full length, called Drifting Into Amazing. And also was a song that we played very proudly at our very last show. And that was the song called Said Then Done. And that, I forget, which one of us mentioned Appleseed Cast. That was, Marigold and Patchwork, that album was played constantly by all of us at the time. And the first song, I got that name wrong. The album is End of the Ring Wars. The song is Marigold and Patchwork. That's the first song. That is a very strong influence on our song Said Then Done. That one to me stands out as the one that I think, we were really in the other songs were a bit outlier, but that one especially, I think, was a good representation of our sound and who we were.
Yeah. Well, and you guys mentioned your age, so that I'm sure, like, just like Dan said, getting better with your instruments. I'm sure the confidence obviously was starting to rise in terms of a songwriting outfit and overall. So I guess bring me through your first full length, Drifting Into Amazing. You guys just mentioned it. Talk about recording your first full length record, and kind of just talk to me how the recording was for that, and thoughts and memories from that time.
Yeah, Ben, you were really involved. I feel like you were at Keith's. That's like what we did after school to go record. Yeah.
On this trailer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember it. Was he on a farm? Was the trailer on a farm? No, it was on a farm.
It was in kind of backcountry Tallahassee, like great Tallahassee area. Yeah. And I'm thinking that, we're all dads now, and we've got kids in varying ages, and I'm trying to think what the heck all of our parents were thinking. Yeah. Where we basically went up to them one day and we're like, hey, after school, every day, we're going to go to a stranger's house who lives in the woods in a trailer by himself. And
he's got candy.
Like, okay. I don't think our families ever met Keith, and Keith became a very, close, near and dear friend to us, and awesome is a wonderful guy, but much older than we were. it just, looking back, feels bizarre, but we didn't think twice about it. It just became where we went after school.
Well, it's exciting for you guys. You know, you're young. You're like going to school, and you're like, hey, I'm going to go record this after school.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
So much fun.
Absolutely.
Well, and it was like, cause I moved to, so my, the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, I moved from Tallahassee to Niceville, and we were still, it was basically my entire junior year. Most of it, we were recording Drifting to Amazing. Was it 9 months? I mean, it was,
wow.
It was like what we were doing, kind of an extracurricular, instead of sports, this is what we were doing, was making this album. And I know we released it, after I had moved to Niceville, because the last song, Can't Stop Saying I Love You, it's actually really cool, really beautiful. Like there was kind of a choir of people singing that line at the end. And I remember Ben and Nathan telling me, yeah, we got these people to come, and Ben's sisters sang, and did that. All that recording was happening after I had already moved. So Ben and Nathan and Keith were left to finish, pretty much finish the album, because I was living, 2.5 hours away. So.
Yeah. What was that like to have that first full length when you completed it? Did you guys feel stoked? Were you excited? And I guess the songwriting of it, did you feel like you had progressed, obviously, from the Dear Jesus EP?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think so. I remember being really proud of, I mean, again, we were now we're fast forward a couple years, we're like 17 years old, but I remember being really, really proud and, of the songs. And there's, again, kind of like Said Then Done from the very first EP, there was a couple songs on Drifting that you can start to see signals of what, like, oh, we're starting to kind of find our sound.
Yeah.
Still some outliers. Like why not put a random instrumental song on there?
Yeah.
With like a crazy monster voice at the end, like, yeah, let's do it. But, there's several on there though that are very, you can start seeing it take shape.
What, did you guys get a buzz from that? I mean, did you guys wind up playing with anyone at all? I mean, were you playing with like Cool Hand Luke and all those bands you kind of mentioned coming through? Were you being able to do that?
Yeah, I recall we kind of had, it was a blessing and a curse, because any band in our genre that came through Tallahassee or the greater Tallahassee area, even like South Georgia, Panama City, Jacksonville, sure. Those cities come to mind. It was awesome because we were often asked to be the opening act for those groups, which we loved. There was also that thing, which I know was typical at the time, where, the local band brings all the fans and the ticket buyers, and then sometimes they'll leave before the headliner plays. I remember we had a problem with that, and I don't remember any bands specifically, but I do know some bands approached us to say, hey, can your friends like stick around, please? Because we need gas money, that kind of thing.
Yeah. What, was that kind of, so basically that record comes out, you're playing shows. Do you start working on the existence EP pretty quickly after that, or are you guys touring playing spot dates or weekends or whatever?
We do weekends. At that time, we were all still in school, and at this point, Tom is not yet in the band officially, but is a part of the band, and that anytime we're, traveling or playing in that Niceville area, Tom was in the van with us in Mona.
Yeah, I was really busy. I was really busy working at Tropical Smoothie, so that was like
well, obviously.
Yeah.
And we would be, shame on us not to mention the absolute pleasure of a man, Cody Jordan, the original bass player, absolute legend. Somewhere in Nashville, just being Cody Jordan, one of our absolute favorite people. He was the first bass player. So he had, very big and small shoes to fill. But he was the first bass player of Forever Change. So, he was kind of my predecessor.
What was that like joining the band, Tom?
Well, not to be like too hyperbolic, but it completely changed my life. Like meeting Dan and meeting Nathan and meeting Ben and going from Niceville, which is a small town in the panhandle of Florida, across the bridge. A lot of people know Destin and 30A and stuff. This is like the poor side with the military base on the other side of the bridge. But I would go back to Tallahassee with these guys, and everything Nathan and Dan and Ben are talking about with the Thunderdome and these shows, I had never experienced community or culture like that. Like, I had grown up in an Assemblies of God church and was like,
Same
this
here,
is
bro.
whack. Bro, this is whack. Like, what is going on here? I'm not interested in this.
Yeah.
And then I met Dan, and Dan introduced me to Ben and Nathan, and you know, Cody and I's lives changed radically. We had a major like faith conversion. Like, I've changed my life entirely, and then would start going with the guys to Tallahassee, and Tallahassee at that time was such a rich place with so many incredible characters and people, and there were some people doing interesting and fun things that I would go there from Niceville, and it felt like a metropolis, like, in a strange way. And these gutter shows that we're talking about were like the coolest thing I had ever seen in my life. And so, you know, I got to be part of that, and then peripherally, you know, just kind of be in the mix with the guys and become friends. But, you know, Cody was a far better bass player than I, and always was. and just a great person. And, I was always just sort of in orbit around these guys until, you know, I think, you know, I don't think I wasn't there. You guys can talk about it, but I think it was a mutual decision to Cody go his way and this. And then I was, you know, at this time we're kind of fast forwarding a little bit to college, and, my chronology is awful. I need you guys to help me, but I think I was somewhere in my sophomore year of school, and, I think we had a conversation. It was like, hey, would you be interested in playing bass for us? And I was like, it's the only thing I've ever wanted to do in my life. Like, yes, awesome. Like, for you, like, for this band, like, yes, like, absolutely. And so my parents went, I was swear, I'm not going to swear, absolutely bonkers. And they're like, you cannot leave school. Like, we are cutting you off, like, literally, and you're on your own to do this. And that was hard. But, you know, I think as a parent now, I look back on it, and if my girls, when they're 20, are like, hey, Dad, I need to chase this thing, I think I'm going to go, absolutely. It makes no sense to me. Yeah. This is a terrible idea, but I am 100% behind you, because it was so cool to get to run and have that time in my life with these guys, and something I still so fondly remember. But yeah, I was sort of in the mix after drifting into Amazing. And, you know, I think if I'm not mistaken, one of my first shows was our second show was Murray Hill and meeting Tim Tabor.
Oh, wow.
So I was really lucky to like get to come in. Like, these guys have worked so hard on all these records, you know, all this stuff. And then I sort of stepped into
You're just reaping the benefits, buddy.
Right. So at that time, I was really busy working at Lenny's Sub Shop making cheesesteaks, but these guys pulled me out of that. So yeah, the rest is kind of history.
Yeah.
But it was a really cool run. It was a really special, like, meeting them was really, really meaningful. And if you like, you know, and now with the luxury of time, you get to look back and think about those seminal moments in your life, and meeting these guys and them, you know, inviting me into those friendships and then inviting me into the band was an absolute fork in the road and a life change for me.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's briefly talk about the Existence EP, maybe your thoughts, memories from that. I know James Paul Wisner, you worked with him at that point. I'm sure he was firing on all cylinders. What was that like? And then kind of bring me through Floodgate coming into the picture.
Well, one of the things that I remember distinctly is that basically when I met James Paul Wisner, I was like, he looks like a mix between Ben Stiller and Tom Cruise. I was like, this is an amalgamation of these two people. I remember distinctly, and you guys can also check me here, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, we went into the studio immediately after Under Oath finished They're Only Chasing Safety, and that record was exploding. And it was like, this is changing things. Like, this record is a new sound, and they're doing something. And then here comes Forever Change. You know, like, so I remember him being like us going in the studio, but he's still like got this, you know, They're Only Chasing Safety hangover, because he's like, oh my God, this thing's going to be massive. And he was great. He was the best. But like, I remember that distinctly. But writing those songs was so fun, and And man, it was just such a cool time. But yeah, he was a great guy.
Yeah, we had loved records that he had worked on. Regulate the Chemicals by 238, which is still one of my
great record.
top favorites.
Further.
Moon is Down, all the Dashboard stuff, which we knew that he had worked with Dan Horner from Sunny Day, so I was like flipping out about that. Tell me everything about Dan. Stairwell, we loved that. The Stairwell album that he did, Newfound Glory. I mean, so we were huge fans, and no kidding, Jeremy, he had just moved to like outside of St. Cloud. So I was going to school in Kissimmee. And the other guys were, I guess both Ben and I, going to Kissimmee for a year, and then Tom and Nathan were in Orlando. This is before you moved, Ben. So yeah, Ben and I were living like 10 minutes from where he and his wife had moved, where he was recording all of his records. And then Tom and Nathan were like 30 minutes away. But it was like, it really was exciting for us. And to back up a little bit, Tom not only brought the dedication, that's really what it was. He was a close friend of ours, but he was committed and he was dedicated to, if we wanted to do the band full time, because that's what Nathan and Ben and I were talking about. But he also brought a magnetism. And Tom is one of the most magnetic people I ever meet. And it was fortuitous because we could see it. We knew it when we started to play all the time and then tour full time. That Tom became a big draw for a lot of people. A lot of the fans were really drawn to him. So, I mean, it was very fortuitous for us to have that. So with, Wisner, we hadn't signed, we had met with Tim Tabor because we had labels, like sophomore year of college, we started having labels interested in us. I remember we played Cornerstone, Florida, and Chad Johnson had already gone from Take Hold to do an A&R at Tooth and Nail. I remember Chad, I think, called our apartment, Ben, and like one of our friends answered and like hung up or something. I don't remember. I just remember that. Like, we're like 18, 19 years old and this is all going on. Militia Group, I don't know how serious we got with them. We were big fans of that label. But then Floodgate was one that I'd already mentioned. Coy and Luke was on that label. Dennis and Mars, another phenomenal Florida band that we just loved. Loved Eric and those guys.
Bernard.
Was Bernard on Floodgate at that point? Okay.
Yeah. Not yet. They were after us, but they were label mates.
And then we did the first Myriad, I'm flying ahead here. I know that we toured with the Myriad on their first US tour. I don't know if they were on Floodgate at that time, but either way, we met Tim at, around that time in Cornerstone, Florida, where we're all still either going to school or working full time. We weren't touring. We weren't, it was kind of like what I think we thought would happen after college started happening right in the middle of it, Yeah. And so Tim had connected us with, Wisner, and we were able to go and record am I remembering that correctly, guys? Like we did the 3 songs with Wisner before Need to Feel was out. Okay.
Yeah, I think how it worked, and this is one of the big reasons we went with Tim Tabor and with Floodgate was he was pretty easygoing for being a record executive. And a rock god.
And a rock god.
And a guy we really loved.
Yes. Timmy.
But
the best.
I remember it being like surprisingly nonchalant as we're pursuing, getting a deal drafted and signed. The Existence EP, I felt like the Forever Change just funded it independently, and then Tim paid us back, or maybe the other way around. But before we signed anything on paper with Floodgate, it was funded by Floodgate Records. And one thing I wanted to say, at that time, as we're really about to become a legitimate, full-time band, granted, the timing was a little off of what we were hoping to do because the guys were still finishing their degrees. We with a label like Tooth and Nail or a label like the Militia Group, and there may have been one other one that
Mono versus Stereo, was it?
Okay.
Yeah.
The struggle that labels had with us, I understood. We are a very Christian band, sounding like a very quote unquote secular band. I still cringe when you have to make that delineation between the two, but we loved playing bars and clubs and churches are fine too, but we didn't want to be one or the other. We just wanted to do, I mean, it wasn't revolutionary or groundbreaking, but we were very confident in who we were and what we wanted to be.
Totally right.
And so Tooth and Nail and Militia Group were very interested, but they were like, you gotta be all in one or the other. And
don't be lukewarm, bro.
Right.
Gonna spit you out, dog.
Tim and Floodgate were the only ones who just right off the bat were like, I get it. I mean, awesome. We got some stuff to work on, but keep doing what you're doing. Here's a little bit of money to record the first record.
What was that like signing to a label at that age? You know, I mean, that had to be obviously exciting. Were you guys just out of your mind stoked?
Oh yeah, it was the dream come true to
absolutely
be on a label, and not just that, but be on a label with other bands that you were already in love with and looked up to. Dennis and Mars and Cool Hand Luke especially. I'd like to tell a quick. I have so many little stories, and I know we don't have time for them. But
get them, Nathan. Get them.
We had just signed to Floodgate, and we're in Bushnell, Illinois, for whatever Cornerstone Festival that year. And I think we were going to play. I think it was our first legitimate, like, on a real stage year. We had always gone and done like generator shows and whatnot, but we were so amped and excited. We went to Walmart to get supplies and stuff because we were camping that year. And we're like, you know what would be awesome? Let's get a cake and write the names of all the bands that are on Floodgate Records. And then we'll like give it to them and we'll write all this funny stuff on it. We happened to run into Mark Nix at the Walmart. And I say happen to. All the Cornerstone people are all like...
Yeah, that's all that's out there. Yeah.
We run into Mark. We say hi. We've met him before, obviously, but we have the cake in our cart. And we start to explain this. We're going to write everybody's names. We're so glad to be on the label. And he's one of my best friends today. But he looked down at the cake and he looked at us and he's like, how are you going to fit all that on the cake? I mean, it's not going to work. And just all that excitement and naive energy that we had, just the bubble bursted. We put the cake back on the shelf and just went about our business.
That probably summed us up pretty well at the time.
Yeah.
All enthusiasm, all 100%, all gas, no brakes enthusiasm.
That's amazing. I love Mark. He's amazing. He's incredible.
Best.
Let's, so you signed to the label. You're excited. Doing your thing, playing Cornerstone and all that. When do you start to work on The Need to Feel Alive? And let bring me through the recording of that record. Maybe your thoughts and memories from that time. Let's just talk about that for a little bit.
Well, we decided we're going to sign and drop out of school, like go full time, right? And so we were, had written a few, but we were taking writing really seriously. I remember, Ben, your folks' garage, spending a lot of time in there. And what was really cool, Jeremy, that I think was fortuitous is I can't remember the scenario or the circumstances why we didn't have a PA for vocals for like quite a big chunk of writing that album. So we spent a lot of time on the music, a whole lot of time, like just the four of us together. And then I would kind of workshop the melodies and lyrics after that. But I remember that, and now going back and listening, I mean, we had just gotten really, really, really tight. And then once we knew that we were going to record with Wisner, I think we had 3 weeks at his house. Like, it was
That's
a
long
pretty
time. Wow.
yeah. And so it was one that we wanted to make sure that we went in and just got it done, you know. And we had gotten to the point where, like, I mean, we could have played those songs forward and backwards in our sleep. Like, we had practiced so much, you know. And so that was, I don't know, it was an awesome time. But I can just say James added a lot of ideas.
I was gonna say, did he have input, and what was that like?
Yeah, he did, and I would say that we were ready to go when we showed up. So I think, you know, he did have good ideas, especially vocally, and adding little things here or there. But we were not writing in the studio. Like, we were ready.
Was
to
it all
go
written?
when we showed up.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel about the songs at the time? I mean, obviously excited enough to do it, but I mean, like, did you feel like you had something special?
Well, it felt really professional. I think that's what was such a huge shift and change. I wasn't there during the Keith trailer recordings, you know, but going to James, it was at his home, and which was really kind of a neat setup. I guess I never really thought about that, but he was in the middle of a residential area in Florida, like literally just drive down the street and it's just a random looking Florida house next to other houses, and you go inside and instead of the living room furniture, there's a drum riser, and that's where that was, you know, and the bedroom was a control room. And it's funny, I still distinctly remember the smell of that house, and like, not in a bad way, but just like it smelled a really distinct way. And I think getting to go there every day, and my phone was getting shut off like every few weeks because I didn't have any money. And like, you know, we were like really scraping it all together to do it. But it really felt like the beginning of something special, because it felt like we were legitimizing these songs we were really proud of, with someone who had done something that we were also proud of, that we also really looked up to. And it was coming out great. I mean, it was such a great process. And, you know, to all of our credit, I think we really got in there, and Nathan is probably my favorite drummer of all time, and he was able to get in there and, you know, just bang, just knock out his stuff. And then we were all going in and just getting, you know, we had so much time we not had a lot of time. We had some time to play around, and it was just an exciting time. And it felt like a really fresh beginning. It felt like, for me, I mean, obviously like the band had been going on for a while, but it felt like a new jump start into the next thing. Mm-hmm. It felt like we were bringing this product that was being like the outcome of the album to people, and it was totally professional, and that felt really legitimizing. And then I think from there getting to tour on it was really exciting. But yeah, I mean, that's the dream, man. Like, everybody wants to be able to go to the studio, and their full-time job is to sit in there and listen and do their stuff. And it was all realized, and it felt exactly like I hoped it would. Like, it was. Yeah,
I was just say, what was it all for you? What was it like hearing that record when it was done? I mean, what was that feeling like?
I'll say it felt like for the first time I had heard what I thought we should sound like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, everything up to that point was like, I mean, in the trailer, we were just scraping together everything. I mean, we didn't have real gear. James had all of that, and he had just such an incredible ear and musical awareness. I mean, we're talking that there was times that he would have us tune for chords. Like, okay, we've got like a B flat coming up, and he'd be like, hold on, stop. And then we would sit there with the strobe tuner, and he would make sure it was perfect while you're holding your hand there on like a B flat, and then be like, all right, we're going to punch in and we're going to do this one chord right here, just to make sure everything was perfect. It was just like I don't think that we at that point had ever seen that sort of nuance, in like just every little thing mattered so much to James. I think it changed the way we thought about music. At least it definitely did.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick too. Sorry, not to cut you guys off, but I want to know, with you saying that, how do you feel about it now? So add that in as well. Like, how did you feel then, and how do you feel now?
Man, it's hard to say, because I think that I think the recording is really great. That was like the big thing that, at least at that time I was focused on, is I never felt like that we had a recording that had done us justice, that showed what we were capable of. And I still think that it does that to this day. So I think James did his job. I think the songs are pretty good. Like Nathan said earlier, I mean, you look back and you're like, man, I would play a lot of the stuff differently, but I mean, Dan's songwriting had really gotten really great at that point. I mean, Dan and I had spent so much time in college continuing to write songs. And I don't even know if we knew where it was going, but we had a lot of material for that record. We definitely did. We didn't have nearly as much for Chapters, but we had a lot for that record. So we had a lot of songs to choose from. Like Dan said, we were really dialed in at that point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think if I look back, I think I'm proud of it. And I think there's some cool moments on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree, Ben. I would say the same thing. And I was on a walk with a buddy this morning and telling him about this thing today, which is, just kind of wild to think, hey, today I'm getting together with the guys and we're going to talk about this record that happened 20 years ago. It's just nuts. And he's a visual artist, and, it's kind of like, it's kind of when you create something and put it out in the world 20 years ago, like it persists, right? And so I sometimes listen to it and go, yeah, that is a snapshot of that time. That is what we loved at that time. When I listen to it today with my girls love it, but I'm proud of it, and I'm not embarrassed by it. But like, I think Ben said it perfectly. Like, there are moments on that record where I'm like, yes, that is still awesome today. And then there's other stuff where I'm like, man, I can't believe I overplayed on that, or like this or that. Like, I'm critical of it, but I'm proud of what we did. But it is a privilege to get to look back and see something that you did and have it persist and still be able to go back. But the negative of that is like, hey, this is what I liked when I was 21. What did you like when you were 21?
Yeah.
And did you share it with the world so we can go look at it? Like, it's, you know what I mean? It's, but yeah, that was a really special time.
What was, real quick, Tom, when you first heard it then, what were your thoughts then?
I was blown away. Just like Ben said, I mean, James Paul was so meticulous and so, particular that we got the exact sounds we wanted as far as I felt. And I mean, I was over the moon with it and was so proud to show it and so proud to go out and play it. And even the album art that our buddy Chris Rushing did was great artist. Like, I just was in love with the album art. And, and then he did a bunch of great shirts for us. Remember the shirts that were like, had the design on the side? We have like all
they were cool.
We had, just that whole era, that whole time was special.
That's awesome. Nathan.
I remember at the time being very proud of it, very happy. And, I do remember that feeling of coming in very confident that we knew what we were going to do. A word that keeps jumping out to me is just execution. It was, since then I've done, studio things, and they're not always, there's some fun exploratory stuff you can do in the studio. You can do writing in the studio, but you can also get really bogged down and frustrated when things don't go right in the studio. Everything went right with The Need to Feel Alive. I don't remember us being hung up on anything in any specific moment. We were very tight coming in. We had James Paul Wisner, who's a very efficient engineer and producer. We were there a while, but it felt like we were in and out. So by the time we got out and had a record in hand, I think we were all on cloud nine in that we had something that we hoped to have one day, and we had exactly what we wanted, with no reservations about it, no issues.
Yeah.
I still listen to it from time to time. There are definitely some magical moments and a couple songs where I think are really, really good songs. It's a band in our late teens, early 20s. You'd always go back and change something in that regard, but it's the record that I'm most proud of, for sure.
Absolutely. Dan.
Yeah, I think I agree with everybody. And some of it, I couldn't wait to play these songs live after people had heard the record, so that's kind of part of their grid, like how they're hearing it is what they've been listening to. And I just knew I think at that point I was much more kind of confident in how we performed live. And after The Need to Feel, it was now, like we can really put together a solid record here. And I can't wait to perform these songs. Yeah, couldn't wait to perform them. Same deal. I think being the singer, there's even how I sing certain vowels. It's like, why did I sing certain vowels that way? And it's like, oh yeah, cause it was, 2005 and I'm sure I was imitating somebody. But yeah, I mean, I just, when I listen to it, I'll do like a deep dive once a year and just go back. And even this week, as anticipating this and just grinning ear to ear, I just love it. And being in a band, this is cheesy, but it's true. Like I was just always such a big fan of these three guys. And so I catch myself listening a lot less to whatever part I was playing and just more so like, oh, I forgot Ben did this here, or Nathan or Tom, it's fun being in a band with guys you're fans of. So
that's awesome.
That's what I think about.
Jeremy, can I ask a question? Can I be in the loft?
Yeah.
So, I would say for you guys, what was your favorite song then, and what is your favorite song now on the record if you have it? And I'll start. My favorite was Vanity Letter, and is still Vanity Letter. That's my favorite song.
I could have guessed that. Back to the cave-in antenna.
It's basically cave-in antenna.
And man, your bass is, is the good kind of like nasty. Like it's just a lot of grit to it.
You make me sound great.
You sound great. You look great too, Tom.
Thanks, guys. You all look great.
Encounter is always going to be one that stands out as a great song. Dang, I had something else. Somebody else go while I try and remember what I was about to say.
Ben?
Yeah. Man, that's really tough. I think that I like the last time. And I don't think we played that one very much live. I don't remember that we did. Encounter was kind of the fan favorite, and I still remember, like, we wrote Encounter. I mean, I think that song came together in like 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It was wild. It was one of those ones that just like,
yeah.
We were in my dorm room at College Station in Orlando, or not dorm room. It's like a terrible apartment, horrible apartment.
Yep.
And it just like, I think we wrote it in like 2 minutes. We just knew exactly what we wanted, and I don't think we changed anything from that moment. Yeah. But that's probably the one that brings everything together that people remember us for, is what I'd probably say. I don't know that it's my favorite, but yeah.
Gosh, I also love Something. I love Something More too. I feel like that's such a great song. We didn't really play that very much, or I don't remember that being a real. But that's just now. I think probably now listening to that song, that chorus, and it's so great. I remember loving that one a lot.
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah. I think, I have Romance and Denial comes to mind, and every time I listen to it, there's like just enough I'd change for it, because I think like, oh, that could have been another signal of where we could have gone. I listened to it and wish we would have done more like that. The breakdown on that is so cool. I really like that one. And I actually think Nathan and like the three of you all wrote, like that was more of your all song. And then I got to kind of come in just as a singer and kind of lay melodies on top of it, which maybe I wasn't as close to that one. And maybe that's partly why I really like it. I love, same deal, Encounter. Like, I just think that it's just such a tight, quick song. And then, I'm cheating here by continuing to listen, but I forgot how much I love The Great Divide. I really, really like that song a lot.
Great song.
And similar to what Ben was saying, I think it showcases a lot of what we kind of offered as a band. So, quick story, Jeremy. The last time was featured. Do you guys know this? It was on Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
What?
Like PlayStation game. Yeah. Did you not know this? So if you look on Spotify, YouTube, it's got tons of plays on YouTube, and people. Dan Johnson told me about this, and it's got comment after comment. Like, there's a specific point in that game where the last time kicks on. There you go. So fun fact.
That's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. Of course. That's
incredible.
I'm still waiting for the royalty check there.
Did you think of what you wanted to think of?
Yeah, Identical was another song that I really liked. Now I'm just thinking about this video game I need to play, and if it's okay, if I haven't seen the movies, am I gonna understand the video game? Because those Fast and Furious movies, let me tell you.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. Well, that's awesome. I love that you guys look fondly on that record. I actually discovered it from Jared Bowser from Bernard and Sun Bears, and he was like, "Have you ever heard?" And I'm like, "No, I hadn't heard this," and I loved it. I think it's a fantastic record from outside perspective. It's so catchy.
Thank you.
It's very Jimmy Eat World in a good way. It's just very like you, and all those influences you said, I can hear all those in that record, which is really cool.
Cheers.
You guys did a heck of a job, and of course having Wisner on board, I'm sure that, was icing on the cake type of thing. So, you obviously hit the road. If the record comes out, you hit the road. Who are you playing with, and when do you start working on chapters? And kind of bring me through that record as well.
Gosh, we toured with so many different bands, and I think one thing that was really fascinating to me was that we always seemed to attract the attention of metal bands that liked us, and we didn't know why. I always felt like because of Ben.
Yeah.
And because Ben was so amazing, and people just loved to watch Ben play. That we were almost like a band that musicians liked in a way. And Dan mentioned it, or I think we've all kind of talked about how we prepped for the record. And, I think that we weren't the greatest band in the world, but we were tight. Like we were on it and live. If anyone was messing up, it was me, but we were, super tight. And so these metal bands like Haste the Day was, Jimmy from Haste the Day was such an advocate for us. And I don't think we ever went on the road with them, but I think we played multiple CD release shows for them. We went on the road with He Is Legend. That was wild and eye-opening. And then we did all sorts of tours with Cool Hand Luke. And I mean, I feel like we saw almost most of the country, from that. And one final piece about it was I felt like The Need to Feel Alive was such a great record to play live. It had so many fun, fast, just bangers that we could put together a really great set from that record. And, we had a lot of fun just kind of playing those songs. But yeah, we had a great book. Nick worked so hard for us. I got to mention him again. That guy worked tirelessly for us. And I was, I'm serious earlier about my phone getting shut off, but he worked miracles for us. I made more money than we should have, even if it was $400 a month. I don't know what. Nick worked so hard. He was just always on it with merchandise and
that's awesome.
Getting us on tours and working the phones and, and getting us where we needed to go. And so he was really the driving force of getting us on a lot of tours. And that was a huge experience. I mean, that felt like going in the studio with Wisner was a dream. Hitting the road touring in a van with a trailer was a dream. We were no longer in a minivan with our gear stacked up. We actually had a 15 passenger with the big trailer. I felt like that was a status symbol. We had made it. We were in a we had a white 15 passenger van. We were a legit band now.
Yeah.
And, getting to just, like Nathan said earlier, some of that complexity of we didn't want to play youth groups all the time. And we liked playing bars and we liked, playing different things. And so those tours were often very, there was a lot of different types of venues we'd play, different types of people we'd play in front of. And, it was really fun. It was a great run.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We did 6 weeks with Showbread. That was a really wild.
Those
guys are wild and love those guys. One of the things we would do, Jeremy, is we would in the middle of the set, Ben would just play Eruption by Van Halen, and so it was our fan base was the coolest fan base ever because you have the normal indie kids, and then guys that are our age now that are have the Van Halen T-shirt that came to see Ben. But I think
stand in front of Ben.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, I think there was just so much good music coming out of the Southeast too. So it was not hard to connect with these great bands, a lot of which were, hardcore kind of screamo bands. But, it was fun for us. And I think we weren't threatening for, it was just, we were just goofy, kind of young, fun loving guys who just were happy to play with whomever. There was, the one tour that I did love, and I mentioned earlier, but we did the Myriad's first U.S. tour, and they were a Seattle band, and so that was really cool to connect those guys, and they were some of which are kind of a season ahead of us. And I remember they opened up for us, the first few headlining shows, just like, man, they're a tough act to follow. We would have 100 people there, and they were playing like there was 1,000 in the audience. And so they taught us a lot too, but I loved that tour a lot.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Their new stuff is incredible. Like unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Check it.
So good. Okay, let's talk about chapters. Working with Jeremy Griffith. Love him. He's hilarious. Just had him on the podcast recently. What a wild, wild man. Let's talk about recording that record and what that was like with Griff and kind of memories and thoughts from that time.
It was interesting. I mean, there's a lot we can and should talk about the chapters era. It's the last full length that we put out is Forever Change. And, I remember we had a lot of anticipation and build up for like what was going to be the next record that we thought we were going to spend, several years being a part of, but it actually wound up becoming something very different and a lot more special because, I'm short circuiting a lot of the story here, but we had kind of created this full-time job of being in this band. So when we weren't on the road, we were, our 9 to 5 was going into a practice space and songwriting. And we had other jobs too, because we needed money for rent and things like that. But when we were writing for chapters, and then as we were finishing the writing phase, we knew we weren't going to be a band anymore. So the fact that we even got to do chapters and record it, knowing that, the fact that we got to tour on it, knowing they would be farewell tours, was really special, looking back on, because we didn't have to have like a farewell show or just cranking out a list of like, your B-sides and whatnot to be, the last thing you put out. It was a send off, for the four of us to be able to work on that and put it out together. And having Jeremy Griffith a part of it, I know we haven't really mentioned him yet. He had become a best friend to the band and it helped us with demos and a little DIY EP we put out back in the day. Having him be our engineer and our producer, was extra special too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I have to mention that, we mentioned Tim Tabor earlier, and like Nathan just mentioned, we knew, knowing that we were going to go, like we had all the songs. We'd spent, I think, a summer demoing, and we were in a storage unit. I remember that.
Wow.
We were in a storage unit, like a literal storage unit with a generator. I think we were running the extension cord, like with 4 extension cords to the thing, like 50 yards away. And we were recording all the songs on GarageBand and doing like demos with that. And, it was amazing to me that even knowing that this record, well, let me stop. Like when we determined that we weren't going to be able to move forward or continue the band, Tim was still so supportive of the music and so supportive of us. He flew in and met with us, and he still funded this record.
Wow.
And funded our tour, knowing that it was literally the run rate on it was a few months. And then, God knows what's going to happen after that. I mean, if you want to ask about like angels in the industry or people that are just, you want to talk about character or just, this is who Tim Tabor is. Like he's so good to us. And that whole thing was so special, like getting to record with Jeremy in St. Augustine and this wild analog studio at the beach. Like it stunk and it was weird and it was all sorts of old gear, but we had so much fun. Like it was way more fun than the Need to Feel Alive. It was way less serious than when we were with James. Like we were on the clock with James Paul Wisner. We were with like our cool older brother and in the basement, with Jeremy, and it really was a special time, and I'm so proud of those songs. And like Ben was mentioning, the previous record sounded so good. Like I was so proud of the sound. This was not the same type of studio, but the songs on this I was so proud of. We had written these just incredible songs, and to have truly the privilege of getting to record them and then tour on them on a limited basis was an absolute gift.
That's awesome. Ben, tell me.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, we chose Jeremy. I remember that. We knew that this was going to be our last record. And I think I remember us sitting down and being like, well, who's going to produce it? And I think unanimously we were like, we want Jeremy to do this for us. We're asking him. We didn't even know if he would do it. I mean, he was busy at the time and everything, but we were honored to be able to work with him. We loved him, and man, he just brings so much to everything. Yeah. Musically, he's far more advanced than us, and I think we've always thought that. Just an incredible singer, an incredible musician, songwriter. We really looked up to him. So getting to record with him was it was amazing. And that studio was very smelly. There's a rat that died in the ceiling.
I remember.
It was brutal. It smelled really bad. But Tom Petty had recorded there. And
wow.
There was like analog, reel-to-reel tapes with Tom Petty's name on it in there, which was really cool. It's like a, like backwoods kind of place in St. Augustine on the beach. But that was like everybody said, I think that was a way more fun to write and way more fun to record there. And it just, all the pressure was off. Man, thank God for Tim Tabor and him knowing, I don't know how. And I wouldn't do what he did today, right? Like there's no way that I would be like, if I was an executive, be like, yeah, let me give you guys a check to record this record that we'll lose money for our record.
Wow.
So I think that's incredible, man. We love Tim. We're so thankful for Tim, and just honored that we were able to it's basically like getting our last thoughts out.
Yeah.
As a band, putting that out there.
Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, that season, it's a gift I love that album. It's really special for all the reasons that these guys listed, and that was an emotional time for sure for me. That I found out that, my wife was pregnant and just trying to figure out just how to make ends meet. And that was, really that was it. That was the gist of it for me. I'd let the guys know that I just saw no path forward to keep touring, and needed to just try to really practically figure out how to make money. And so it was emotional. Just to be candid here. And so there was nothing else that I wanted to do than to get in the studio with my brothers and record. And I know looking back, I was all over the place at the same time, just trying to, so that was like a respite for me. That was just like, if I could do that, and be with these guys and do that, then it was a real gift and real rest. And part of me, there are definitely things that when I hear that album, it still feels a little unfinished. Like I knew that, and not because Jeremy did an amazing job, and like all these guys said, but, I knew that we were on a trajectory with those songs. And so even though, the band ended, it's still, it was not a foregone conclusion that we would have that album. I remember Tim saying, when he heard the demos, he's like, man, why'd you guys have to write such a great record? Now I have to have, it was like a limited run of what Floodgate put out. So even if I could just have that album, I'm so glad. And the fact that it got out there, and I still, I hear from people about that album, that it means a lot to them. So that's a real special thing. So
how long were you guys in the studio with Jeremy?
I don't know. Does anybody know?
I don't think it was that long. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Long.
Yeah. I would, if I had to guess, it'd be on the shorter side.
Yeah, maybe 2 weeks, because we were staying with him. When we were in town, we'd crash at his place too. So.
Well, I know some of you guys have kind of mentioned that you're proud of it. Just looking back on it, how do you feel about it as a whole?
I love it. I love it. There's some songs on there that, it's the most mature writing we had done, for sure. So I really love it. Yeah.
Ben?
Yeah, I agree. It feels a bit unfinished. It's probably the way I like, a little bit disjointed at some points. I think we were touching on some things there that were unique and like directions that if we would have kept going, we would have probably tried to hone in on some of those things. But honestly, it's probably the one that I would listen to the least. And I don't really know why. I mean, it's not like I think it's a good record. But I don't know that I was like 100% happy with everything, like production, songwriting. There were some of those that like, we got to the end and we were like, we need to finish this song. Let's finish it.
Yeah.
Like, and where, like this is my perspective. Some of those we may have been like, we were going to continue, may have been like, we don't even want to record the song. Let's not record this.
Yeah.
And let's go with one that made a little more sense while we were writing it, or like came together quickly or something like that. It was in some ways there was a lot of loose ends on that record with like all these little pieces of songs we had all played with for a long time, and we kind of put them together, put lyrics to it, and made a record.
Yeah.
And some of those really came out special. The last song, I don't know why I can't remember the Letting Go of You. Like that one came together and was just so quick, and it wasn't overthought. It feels like a lot of our stuff that was good was like that, like we didn't really want to. It's just like, this is exactly what we wanted. But that's like an example of one for me that I was like, I think that's a great song. That's one that we would definitely have had on the record no matter what. But yeah.
Yeah. Tom?
Yeah, I definitely, it's funny you guys have mentioned that you felt like it was unfinished. I've never thought that. Like, I think that, not that you're wrong, I just have never listened to it and felt that way. And maybe it's because I was so grateful that we got to do it that I just kind of felt like, hey, anything is great. Like, we wrote these songs in a storage space, and then, we kind of, abruptly, knew that we were done, and it was the right thing, and I think that getting to be 20 years older and looking back on it, it's like, it made so much sense, and I don't think we ever really got to like talk about that or like address that, but like, it was such an identity thing for me. Like, I don't know, Jeremy, if you talk to other bands or other musicians, but I mean, being in Forever Changed was my entire identity.
Yeah.
Like the entirety of who I was. And so, it was really hard to lose that. And I was never bitter or never angry, but now as a father of two, like it was so clear that it was the right decision. And I'm so thankful that we got to do it then, and we didn't, maybe we could have gotten down the road and some of us wanted to continue and some of us didn't. And I mean, money was tough, and Dan was ahead of us with the family, and, I don't think any of us were married. We certainly didn't have kids. We were just goofballs, Dan was kind of like, taking care of us. So, of course, he was a few years ahead of us and all that. And I just look on it so fondly, like such a great gratitude that we were able to do that together and to really have that great cheers and goodbye, and then we got to tour on it, and we got to see
who did you guys tour with?
We went to Panama City, and, we loved playing in Panama City, and like these little clubs that no one would ever even know existed, in strip malls, and like, kids would come out, and it was just so meaningful, and I don't even remember who was on the tour.
It was Chasing Victory.
Oh, nice.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Those are our best buddies,
Corey,
for sure.
Maybe Corey Crowder, Bernard played Jacksonville.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Murray Hill was such a great place for us, and so many good memories there. But I genuinely look back on those songs, and I actually like those songs better. I think I actually find myself listening to Chapters more, and I would agree that it doesn't sound as good as technically, but some of those moments in that record I think are actually more exciting, and would have been excited to continue to pull those threads, but that's the way life goes, and it was all good. You know.
Nathan.
Yeah. Lots of things come to mind. One thing we haven't really mentioned is how good of a piano player that Dan is. And so I do remember one thing I really like and value about chapters is we have some Dan playing piano on there. And I know Need to Feel Alive ended with a piano song, but I feel like the piano instrument was more a part of the songwriting and the album chapters. You know, I think the track 1 and then the last track are really standout songs that really, I think, paint a good picture of what would have been had we continued on a full-time band trajectory. I think those songs are super strong. What also comes to mind for me is, you know, the approach to chapters was very different than the approach to Need to Feel Alive, just in how we wrote and played the songs. And by played the songs, I mean played them live. We were still very much touring on the Need to Feel Alive. Those were the songs that people knew. Those were the songs that, you know, we knew people would come to see. That was the majority of our set. We would sprinkle in a new song or two here and there that were part of chapters, but we didn't have that time that bands can benefit from where you play the songs live.
Yeah.
You figure out what feels good on the stage. You figure out what, you know, makes sense in a live setting. We didn't really have that with the chapter songs. That was something I think could have benefited those songs a lot more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I know you guys mentioned and alluded to, obviously, the end of the band, knowing before you recorded this record, and, of course, the tour. Bring me through that. I know, Dan, you kind of mentioned, you know, your wife getting pregnant, that being kind of a reason in your eyes. I'm just kind of curious individually for you guys, what that was like for you guys, and looking back on it. It sounds like, you know, you guys said, oh, it was the right decision, which is good, but just bring me through your eyes at that time and just kind of overall looking back on the end of the band.
I could start. I have the fondest memories of how things ended. I think the thing that stands out to me the most is, you know, we knew that Dan was starting this new chapter of his life. Pun intended, by the way. Anybody pick up on that? But Ben, myself, and Tom, for a while, we were talking seriously about what to do next. Should we try and make Forever Change with a new singer work? Should we try a different project, call it something different? What I am so grateful for, what I'm so proud of with Forever Change is that nothing made sense without the four of us doing it together. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Dan was the guy who walked out the door first, but it would still be the same feeling, peace of mind, whatever you want to call it, if it was me or if it was Tom who had to vacate the band or Ben. The four of us as a unit was forever changed. I don't think there's ever been a thought of trying to do some version of it without all four of us. And the bands that can and do that, good for them. I love a lot of music that has come through these iterative, you know, lineups that other bands can do. I can't imagine that in a band like Forever Change without the four of us. So when it split, yeah, it was an adjustment to kind of move on and figure out what to do next, but complete peace and a lot of gratitude that it ended the way it did.
Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's wild. It was both equally the easiest decision I've ever made and the hardest decision. I mean, really, because, for all the obvious reasons I think we could have gotten to, if we would have stuck with it and the talent and the character of these guys, I really think, and maybe a few opportunities here and there to where we were able to make money and do it. And we weren't there yet. And it really didn't matter because we were 21, 22-year-old guys that were in the minor leagues and happy to be in the minor leagues. Maybe some towards AAA ball, but we weren't at the majors. And, so the easy side of just, I've really got to find a full-time job. The hard side of just it not being the way that I, would have written the story with the band, and just feeling like I was letting down these guys, and even just the practical of I love the records, and it's fun we're talking about the records, but for me, a lot of the highlights is sharing the stage. The records are what we can ad lib on, but sharing the stage with these guys, like, that is some of the most, best moments, ever. Even all the way back to when we were playing the VFW in Tallahassee when we were 15, that weird, like, Harley Davidson garage in Orlando where Tom fell off the 5-foot stage. Do you remember that? Like, I turn around and he's just, like, his legs are up.
Well,
do you remember that, Tom?
Which time?
Yeah. Like, the albums are awesome, and like, we could spend, I know, probably 10 hours going through being together on stage and in between touring. So I knew that that Tom talked about the identity. It was just a wild thing to think, oh my gosh, this has been the biggest part of my life. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, at that point for 7 years, since I was a freshman in high school. So to just try to imagine what that was like. And I think if I were to go back and do it again and had more maturity, I would have made it more of a discussion with the guys, a conversation. So that's something that, like, just like maybe there's things I would change about some of our records, like that's something I would have done differently. It just made it more of a conversation. But I think, it was just, didn't quite know exactly what to do. And was, and still forever grateful for these guys and how they handled everything. Just cause it seemed like such a jump in the season of life and a real maturation point, for me. And I was grateful that we've already alluded to that we were able to end on our terms.
Yeah.
Like after it was decided that we were breaking up, which, those last shows were just wild. Just wild, because those were some of the best shows we ever played, and the crowd was so into it. And so again, like it's amazing to walk away from kind of the top. And while it ended again, maybe before I or any of us would have liked or anticipated, I am grateful that it wasn't some of the other stories from buddies of mine of bands where it just ends in kind of like a blaze of glory type of thing. And we saw that. We toured with bands and saw that firsthand. And so I'm grateful that it didn't end that way. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ben.
Yeah, I think, man, I agree with Tom 100%. It's your identity, right? Like, and this is like the naivety of being in the band since I was like 16, and then going into, adulthood with the band. It was like I never even considered that it could end, which is such a funny thing to think about at the time, like looking back, but like that wasn't even on my radar. Like, it was like we had done it for so long. It was like a relationship you've been in for so long, and then, you get the rug pulled and you're like, oh gosh, who am I? And that, I think that's probably more of, like figuring out, what do we do now? What do I do with my life? Who am I when I'm not in this band? That's definitely a thing that I think a lot of guys that I've talked to over the years have struggled with, that were in these bands that had some level of success or something like that. And, and it's a difficult thing to deal with, but I think all of us found our way. I 100% still think that it was the right thing to do. And like, I don't now with kids, like hindsight's totally 20/20, right? Like, and you can see, and you can look back and be like, dude, if I was Dan, what would I have done? Like, I have no idea. But I probably would have made the decision that he made.
Yeah.
That would scare me to death to think about having kids at that time. So I was definitely not ready. So in some ways I feel like I was like forced into a decision, and then I look back and I'm like, it was probably the best the best thing that could have happened. My regret, I don't know if it's a regret, but like I wish we could have experienced more musically together. That's probably the biggest thing. And, you know, just missing the friendships and everything else that came with it. I mean, touring is like a summer camp.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So much.
Yeah.
It was the best job that I ever had. That's for sure, man. It was
That's
pretty.
awesome.
Yeah, about it.
Tom.
Yeah, I think, gosh, listening to everyone talk, and especially you, Dan, you know, I can't believe that you had to do that. Like, that must have been so hard. Like, I can't even imagine thinking about us and thinking about fam, and like, it's just amazing. So, yeah, it was hard for all of us, but, you know, the band is either going to be the Rolling Stones, or they're going to break up, or they're going to die on the stage, right? Like, someday it was going to happen, you know, and so, I couldn't agree more with these guys, and yeah, Ben, what you're saying, like, yeah, it would have been really, who knows what another 2 years would have sounded like, you know what I mean? Or who knows how our live show would have evolved, or, you know, or anything, or how much more piano there would have been on the record, or new records, like that, those unknowns are exciting, those unknowns, you know, you could get excited about, but, that was just, yeah, it was hard, and, but it was the right thing. It was the right thing. And then, you know, and then beyond that, we had such a great run there at the end, and that last show in Tallahassee was just we'll never forget it. Like, just, awesome. You know, some of those Murray Hill shows and the Panama City shows, and which were, you know, you make such friendships with people. And I'll say this, like, Jeremy, you talk to a lot of musicians, and, probably the thing that I'm so grateful for is getting to have the experience where someone comes up to you and says, the thing that you make is my favorite thing. Like, that's the most insane thing you can imagine. Like you're my favorite band. Like, that's crazy. So it's really hard to go do another job or to do anything else after you've been paid. And the outcome to do this, and the outcome is that someone, like a kid, comes up to you and is like, your record's my favorite record. You know, it's like, it's really cool. Like, it was a really insane privilege to be able to live and get to do that. So I'm so thankful. I look back over the entire thing with ultimate gratitude and appreciation. And it was tough, but it was right.
Yeah. Well, you alluded to my next question. I was just you know, tell me what you guys want to say, but the impact the band had on people. I mean, I feel like just hearing you guys talk and how much love you have for each other and camaraderie and all that stuff, it's really heartwarming, and it's very life-giving, and it's just cool to see, I'm sure for people that were fans of the band, how it impacted them musically and their life and stuff. So just curious to your thoughts on the impact of the band overall.
Immense, right? I guess I'll take this. Man, it was immense, and just a profound impact. I think like Tom said, it's so wild for anybody to say that we were their favorite band. Like, that was so crazy. I think that the ultimate impact is just the relationships that we made from the band in general. That for me has been the most impactful thing from it over the time period. I mean, the music obviously led to those things, but I think relationally it's been extremely impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm going to steal Ben's answer. That's exactly how I feel. And I'll share it with an example. It's kind of a weird thing where I still have these dreams. I like 2025, 42 years old. I still have recurring dreams about forever change. The most interesting part about it, though, to me, is that the dreams, I think, are a reflection of what I value most in the band, what I think about most in the band, what I have the most memories about. Yes, the music was fun. Yes, the albums were great. Yes, the live concerts and tours were like a great part of it. But my dreams and my favorite memories are just traveling with the guys, we're on tour somewhere, or we're setting up for a show, or we've got 4 hours to kill and just goof around in a venue with like nobody in there. Like those are the things that I know not every band has that kind of element to it, and I value that and cherish that most of all. That and I hope everybody feels like that you have the coolest friends. Like,
Yeah.
That, Tom, Ben, and Dan are still three of my very best friends. And I hope everybody has friends like that. And I know a lot of people do, especially something that bonds you and unites you, like music. But that's the thing that sticks out most to me, of just having lifelong friends. Especially being a dad now, having kids, you see all sorts of lessons that they learn through their eyes and their experiences, and how everybody has friends that come and go. You will have seasonal friends. You'll have friends you'll get in a fight with, and then a couple years later you're right back at it. And then hopefully you have at least one friend that's like your lifelong friend. And I have the three of those for sure in these guys.
I love that. Tom?
And what an incredible impact. I mean, we spent so much more time at Denny's with kids than we did on stage, like there was, right? Like, so many floors we slept on, so many weird situations we got into, and then people that, we got to meet. And, I think that getting to have that influence was really powerful. And I think that I'm really proud of who we were. I'm proud of like how we represented ourselves to the people we met and the kids that liked our band and came, faithfully to see us. That was really special. And I think that, like I was mentioning, that's such a privilege to sometime in your life be able to create something that, people loved so much, and then you got to interact with them directly about, and, that's just not everyone's work day.
Yeah.
You don't get to do that. And so I look back on it really fondly, and, and I couldn't have done it with better people, people I loved more. And, it was such a great weird trip.
That's awesome. Dan?
Yeah, this was pre-YouTube, like pre-Facebook. Like this was us only seeing when we go to Panama City and see that same group of high schoolers. Like, this is the only time we see them and the only time they connect with us outside of listening to our records. And so it was a really special time just with these guys saying that. And I think we were all like really just, it was always, a big part of who we were. We didn't do everything right, but that is one thing that we took really seriously was not missing the moments to really connect with people, especially off stage. So that kind of fraternity, or that like part of our lives that the four of us had, and most of the time Nick, our manager, who was on tour with us a lot, like we really tried to invite as many people into that as possible, and just this really big group of misfits, which is fun. I remember after the Need to Feel came out, someone asking me for sheet music for Knowledge, the piano song at the end, because they wanted to play it at their wedding.
Wow.
And that was like, oh wow, like you're now inviting us to be a part of, arguably the most special moment of your life with your spouse, and things like that happening along the way. That is really, really cool. And now with the advent of YouTube, there's like like Letting Go of You, a drummer going in there and showing you how to drum, like drum tutorial on that.
Wow.
There's people trying to figure out like guitar parts. There's a band in California I've seen that's covered our songs at shows, like things like that are just, because in my mind it's so I think we were on Pure Volume in MySpace, right? But it's kind of pre all of that. And so it's cool that someone already said this, like friends our age that their teenagers are into Forever Change. Like it's really neat. It's really cool to be a part of, and both in the moment and now 20 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you the $1 million question. Is there a future? Are we talking a reunion at some point?
I'll go first because I have to scoot. But for a long time, I didn't want to do it, and not because of the guys. Like, I would love to get together with the guys. I'm just not personally a fan of, like, I'm not trying to relive the glory days. Like, that's not my way. When I'm kind of done with something, I sort of, that's right, baby. I move on. Like, it's what's, it's what's, kind of what's next. But having my girls now be 9 and 11, I would love so much for them to get to see us play. So I'd totally be open to it. I would totally be open to anything ever, whether that's writing new music or, or doing a one show or something. Like, it would just be the coolest thing in the world to have our kids, like, in the front row at a show and get to see us. And like that would be why I would do it, is for that reason. And just to also get to spend the time with these guys. So yeah, I'm 100% open. And thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Tom, we'll talk soon, dude.
See you, brother.
Ben.
Yeah, I also got to go too, unfortunately. But, man, yeah, I think so. I honestly never even considered that up to this moment right here. I don't even know if I can play those songs anymore, to be honest. Like, I don't know. But, man, I would be less interested in playing the old stuff and much more interested in, like, doing something different and new.
Yeah.
Like Tom said, I'm not interested in reliving a glory day or anything like that. This may be controversial, but I think it's like cringe when I see the bands getting together like that. I don't know why. I just don't.
Yeah, I get that.
It feels like it's for them and not for the fans, but I don't know. That's just me. But I'd be open to something like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Nathan?
I was really excited to hear these answers, and for anybody that's listening, none of this is scripted. I myself as well, I'm honestly a little, I don't know. I'll say this. I share, the similar kind of reservation to resurrect something from your 20s that, is definitely going to look different. Probably sound a little bit different too. I have no interest to try and resurrect something and do like a reboot of the band and take it and run with it and do something. I love the bands that do that. American football comes to mind where, they're an oddball band in that they were a flash in the pan and so impactful in the scene in the 2000s. I think they're actually better now than they were.
I agree with
with what was arguably a top 10 record in their first self-title. I think they're incredible now. They're an exception to the rule, in my opinion, because sometimes you see bands get together and it's like, oh, this kind of taints the memory of what I cherished and loved before. I feel like that's possible if we were to try and do that as Forever Changed. I don't want to mess with my good memories and my experience. At the same time, something that Tom said about, he'd want his girls to see the band. I think that's beautiful. I would love to play music with these guys and just be in the room with them, for any opportunity. Maybe not a show, but maybe, playing together sounds wonderful. Dan and I have actually done that. I flew out to Seattle a year or two ago. Dan, I forget which year, 2 years. And we jammed. We played a bunch of Forever Changed songs that his son played with us too, which is
awesome.
So bizarre. And awesome, just bizarre, like, in a life-based kind of way. So yeah, Ben said it, the idea of like playing together sounds amazing. The idea of rebooting Forever Changed on a reunion tour, no.
You can always sleep on floors still.
Who knows? Oh, my back would love that.
Dan.
Yeah, same. I would just love to get in a room. It was amazing when Nathan and I did that, and I could not believe how quickly everything came back to mind. And then the thought of it's one thing, like, I mean, we really gave 100% live. Like, my lower back is hurting thinking about that. No, I would love to. I just want to be in these guys' lives more, and so I would love to like fly out to Florida and get in a room together and just jam. And if we want to see what comes of it, I'm good with whatever. I just would love, even just for the four of us, and maybe invite some friends over or something. It just is an excuse to get together and kind of stroll down memory lane with us. That sounds like a dream. I would love that. And then writing, I am always up for that. So, I think it'd be fun.
Did I just make a love connection? Is this happening?
I told you we'd be gushing. This is the first time the four of us have been in the same room in like 19 years. So
thank you.
Thank you for that, man.
Listen, we'll start to wind down. Real quick, and I'll ask you first, Ben, just because I know you got to bounce. But I know you can't predict the future, but what does the future look like for you guys individually? Go ahead, Ben.
In relation to the band or just like personally?
Just to you, personally.
To me, man, I'm so focused on my family and just, gosh, it's so busy with four girls. It's hard to even describe. We got volleyball and tennis and dance and everything else. I rarely have time to play, but I still do play music often. It's like the one thing that I get to do for myself basically at this point now. But, man, I just see raising my kids and, I don't know, raising my kids, the way that we need to and, trying to still have music in my life to some degree. I think it'll come back. It's kind of funny, man, because I think about my dad and I think about him. There's a point where my dad gave up guitar and he was like, I couldn't believe that he gave up guitar. But it was right around the time where I was born. And now, like, I look back, I'm like, gosh, that makes a whole lot of sense that he had to give up guitar. Because the time when you have kids is just, it's so busy. So, man, I just want to be able to, have good friends and, raise my family and play music. And I think that's my future. And I got a good job. I'm happy with my job. So
that's awesome.
Just doing that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Nathan.
I like all sorts of examples that we've talked about so far about how life comes and goes and you cherish and make the most of it in that season of life. And for me, it is definitely just being with my kids and my wife, pouring into our children at the age that they are is just such a gift and something that I know there will be a day I look back and could do a retrospective of that season of life. So, being with my kids as much as I can. My daughter is getting into playing music herself. At her age in 6th grade, she's in jazz band at school and she's like playing music on her own, here at the house. And like just being a part of that, and not like, I'm not, I try and curb my excitement about that and let that be something that grows through her that she's interested in without letting her know how ecstatic I am that she's getting into something. So basically what I'm saying is there's going to be a traveling family band. It's a part of my life. No, pouring into my kids. I still get to play music a lot, which I'm very grateful for. I've got a couple buddies here in town that I, write and play with, and we don't do like live shows a lot, but music still is and always will be a huge part of my life. It's less about drums these days. That's what I've played in Forever Change. It's more guitar and piano. It just fills me up and gives me a lot of joy. I'm not great at it, but I will always need some kind of instrument to tinker with. And, playing with people is especially rewarding too. So just keep playing, maybe not for anybody, but playing the music is always going to be there.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. Dan.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of on the back nine with the kids these days, which is wild to think about. As I mentioned, Kylie's in college and Reed's a junior in high school, and we're not quite 2 ships passing the night, but it's kind of like, can I get time on your calendar? I want to hang out with you. So he's just busy doing all his stuff. So my wife Allie, she, a big part of our life is, we started a nonprofit in 5 years ago that she runs camp for families with children with special needs. And
Wow,
so that's a huge part of it. I'm blessed to have a great full-time job so that she can really focus on that. And so as we're kind of planning for this next season of life that, we'll be here before we know it, we're empty nesters. That's going to be a lot of our time and energy, just getting to grow the camp and more plugged in with these families. So
what's it called?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. It's called Camp Woodrich is the name of it. And the namesake, Nathan and Ben would know well, one of the most generous people who ever met, Frank Woodrich. So it's named after him. But that's a big part of what we've dedicated our lives to. And and then musically, as long as the Verlaine guys, we just keep plugging along and writing when we can and playing our 2 shows a year on average. So
that's awesome. Tell Jonathan I said hello, by the way.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Awesome. Guys, this has been so cool. I'm really, really honored to have you guys on and talk shop and just bring me through your past and, of course, your potential future. So really, really honored to have you guys on. And thank you so much for all the music over the years. And, Dan, getting to meet you a couple years ago, working football with you, it was just wild and cool. And it's awesome we got to keep in touch over the years. And just really honored to have your guys' time. Hey, thank you, listener, for tuning in again and again. I really appreciate it. So honored to have you along on this journey. If you'd like to add me on Instagram and Facebook at The Rumors Are True Cast. If you'd like to like and subscribe, you know the drill. I do have some merch on merchyeah.com. There is a link in the link tree on the Instagram and Facebook if you're interested in that. So thank you for that. Thank you to the band Forever Changed. Dan, Ben, Tom, and Nathan, thank you so much for your time. It's so cool and so honored to have you guys on and talk about the band and your lives overall. So thank you again to the band Forever Changed. Got some incredible artists on the horizon, guys, and you know it. Nostalgia is still a heck of a drug. The podcast is produced by Wesley Hill, artwork by Jared Chase Bowser, and music by Brian Jaron. This episode is dedicated to the memory of my dear friend, producer, and man of many talents, Brian Jaron.